Father Barnabas Powell is pastor of Saints Raphael, Nicholas, and Irene, Greek Orthodox Church of Cumming, Georgia, USA. Here's Father Barnabas with Sunday's homily.
I want to start this first Sunday of the Triodion. That's a nice Greek word for you to stuff in your pocket that you've not heard, maybe not heard before. The Triodion is the hymn book for Great Lent. And we've already started hearing hymns for Great Lent because this is the first Sunday of the preparation for Great Lent. It's the Sunday of the Publican and the Pharisee. And for the next 3 weeks, I want to give a sermon series on how to become a virtuous person, preparing for battle, how to become a virtuous person. Because the fathers of the church throughout the centuries have said that the period of Great Lent is war. It's a battle. Now, it's not a battle like we think of war and battles in World War II or the police action of the Vietnam. Well, we don't want to call it a war. That would be wrong. That police action in Vietnam is what we were supposed to call it. It wasn't never declared war. By the way, I don't remember. I guess the last time that the Congress declared war was World War II. They should probably do their jobs from now. Never mind. I won't go into that. That'd be too much. That's too much. But the fathers have talked about the period of Great Lent to be a time of preparation for battle. In fact, it's called bad guy, the dark places, the seedy places. Did you know that the pornography industry in this country is now a $30 billion business in this country? And it has now become mainstream to the point that both men and women are suffering from addiction to this scourge on our society. The concept of virtues is virtually absent from our society. But make no mistake about it, ladies and gentlemen, the purpose of the Orthodox Christian faith is to create in you the virtues that will make you a real human and not the shadow human of men and women that are gripped by their vices. The vices that grip us and enslave us and make us more animal than human are our enemies, and they are meant to be tamed. They're not meant to be indulged. How do you do that, Father? Good question. I'm glad you asked. Stick around the next 3 Sundays. We're going to talk about that very thing. And the first virtue that we're going to develop is the virtue of humility. Because brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, men and women, boys and girls, Mr. and Mrs. America all across the land and sea, no. The foundation for all goodness in our lives, the foundation for all right thinking, the foundation for all right behavior, the foundation for all right choices and proper attitudes And courage and strength begins with the virtue of humility. The problem is, people nowadays are confused about humility. They think humility is weakness, and humility is not weakness, ladies and gentlemen. Humility is strength under control. That's humility. Humility is strength under control. And so it's not a mistake that the church, as she prepares us to step into the arena of the virtues for Great Lent as we prepare to celebrate the resurrection, where we're going to fast for 40 days from meat and dairy. We become vegans. We Orthodox become vegans during Great Lent. Now I'm going to warn you now. If you come to me and say, Father, can I eat this? I'm going to flick your nose. No, I'm not going to flick your nose. Ladies and gentlemen, this is big people land. In big people land, I keep my eyes on my own plate, not yours. If you're confused about something, let it go. If you're not sure about something, don't do it. I love it when a lady came to me the other day and she said, Father, I don't know what to do. I said, well, then don't do anything. If you don't know what to do, don't do it. Don't do anything. Oh, but I know we're Americans. We're supposed to do everything we can. But sometimes the best thing to do is just hush. Sit quietly for a while. So the church prepares us for this Lenten labor of joy, this sober joy of fasting and prayer and extra services. And the church tells us why we're going to do this work by giving us these 3 Sundays before the beginning of Great Lent. And the first Sunday is meant to teach us the power of humility, the virtue of humility. Now, let me help you with humility a little bit. Because in our gospel lesson today, we see true humility. But I need to help you and protect you against a ditch on both sides of this narrow road that we're going to walk. Humility is a powerful honesty without shame and despondency. Watch this. Humility is a powerful honesty, not with others, with yourself, without shame and despondency. Unfortunately, most of us have been taught that God the Father is some kind of scary bad guy who is up there with just taking notes about all the things, all the rules we break. Ladies and gentlemen, if that's your view of God, I want you to know you're more pagan Greek Zeus worshiper than you are Christian. It's just what is, folks. If you can make God mad, you're God. And I know some of you very well. Some of you come to confession. I know good and well you ain't God. If you can make God mad, you're God. And you ain't God. God is not the one with the problem here, folks. It's us. But too many times when we hear the word humility, we think, oh, that means I'm supposed to really feel bad about the wrong things that I did, and you're missing the point. God the Father is not a divine terrorist dangling a soul over hell waiting to drop you in. That is not the God of the Orthodox. If that's your God, get you another one because you've got a lousy God. Trade it in right here. I'll give you a good one instead. The power of humility demands an honesty with myself that does not allow for shame or despondency, but joy and hope. A man or a woman that can finally be honest about themselves, where their strengths are or where their weaknesses are, when they can finally be honest to themselves where they're strong and where they're not strong, without feeling shame or guilt or despondency, depression, you're beginning to approach humility. Look at our gospel lesson today, because we've got a blind man and a man who can see. The blind man is the Pharisee, the religious guy, who does everything right and focuses on his strengths alone. Whereas the publican, not a popular guy in Jewish circles, you know what the publican was, don't you? Tax collector. What do you think of the IRS? Don't get me started. The publican was a tax collector Usually a Jew that is cooperating with the Roman authorities, the occupying power. Now, how do you think the other Jews feel about a collaborator? Yeah, exactly. Not a popular fellow. But he goes to the temple and will not pick up his eyes and look up to heaven. He beats his breast, says, Lord, be merciful to me, a sinner. And Jesus says the Pharisee who's doing everything right, who's following all the fasting rules, who fasts twice a week like we do. We fast twice a week, don't we? Wednesday and Friday. You do know that, don't you? Okay, good. Wednesday and Friday, we fast. The Pharisee fasts, and I give tithes of all that I have. That's the kind of guy you want as a member of your church, folks. But the publican doesn't list all of his sins, and he doesn't list any of his strengths. He just says, Lord, be merciful to me, the sinner. Lord, be merciful to me, the sinner. Because the publican is awake to true humility. True humility recognizes I both depend on God for mercy, and I need to acknowledge that for my own salvation. I must depend on God. I cannot live as if God doesn't exist. I cannot be a functional atheist in my choices, in my priorities, and in my actions. Too many of us are that today now, folks. God only crosses our minds on Sundays or now and again. We are basically functional atheists in this country. But the faith, once for all delivered to the saints, invites us to acknowledge our need for God every moment of every day and say to God, be merciful to me, a sinner. Jesus says the publican went down to his house justified. The Pharisee did not. As we consider developing virtue in our life, understand that the foundation for all virtues, the foundation for honor, the foundation for respect, the foundation for love, the foundation for dignity, the foundation for, if I can use a Greek word, philotimo. And if you don't know what philotimo means, find you a Greek at coffee hour and ask them, because they need to tell you. The foundation for philotimo, the foundation for every virtue a human is called to have, is the foundation of humility, because humility begins with an honest inventory of who I really am. Strengths and weaknesses without shame or despondency. The devil only wants to remind you where you're weak so he can keep you weak. The devil knows your name, but he calls you by your sins. God knows your sins, but he calls you by your name. On this Sunday of the publican and the Pharisee, escape the prison, the twin prisons of arrogant pride and lying despondency. And be honest with yourself. And use this period of Great Lent to do the spiritual inventory of your life so that you can find out where you're strong, find out where you're weak, and present both of them to God by saying, Lord, be merciful to me, the sinner. This is a great Sunday, folks. This is an important Sunday. This is the first Sunday of preparing for battle, developing the virtuous life. And the foundation for all virtues is humility. I will tell you this before I close. You can either humble yourself, or, honey, life will find a way to humble you for yourself. Don't be driven to your knees, children. Drop to your knees in honest humility and build virtue in your life. Amen.
You can follow Father Barnabas on YouTube or on our church website at stsrni.org. Thank you for watching.